Hey guys, it's Kim from Dodges and Daisies, and I just wanted to welcome you back to my channel, or if this is your first time tuning in, welcome you to my channel. So today we are going to be doing something a little different. I tend to be a journaler that doesn't like to plan out my journal pages. Normally I'll kind of come to them with an idea of what I have in my mind of like what the theme is that I'm working with, or what I want to say on the page, or like what I want to represent, or like the aesthetic that I'm looking for. But I just kind of go into it like with those things in mind and not the actual layout of the journal planned out. This time I had a really specific journal theme in mind because it was going to be about like something specific. How many times can I say specific? I wanted to journal about a birthday that I just had because it was a milestone birthday, and I had a very clear idea of what I wanted the journal to be. So I knew that I wanted to take photos of myself throughout the years, like as a baby, as a child, as a teenager, in my 20s, I wound up being two spreads, so in my 30s, and then on my 40th birthday. And I knew that I wanted to write a letter to myself, like a letter to my childhood self, a letter to my baby self, a letter to myself as a teenager, a letter to myself in my 20s, just kind of looking back as a 40-year-old, just kind of what would I say to myself if I were to kind of like meet that person at that time. And it was really important to me to do this because I've always had difficulty with milestone birthdays. When I turned 20, I had like a complete crisis. When I turned 30, I had like a complete crisis. And so of course at 40, complete crisis. I'm just somebody that doesn't really like change, and any kind of big change is always kind of a big deal for me. It takes me a little while to wrap my head around it and get used to it. And I think 40 is a tough one because it's kind of like leaving your youth and kind of moving more into like middle age, but you don't really feel that way inside. It's like the number is telling you that, but like you kind of just, you still feel like yourself. And I feel like the more that I talk to people, because I've been talking to people a lot of different ages, I think everybody has kind of mirrored that same feeling, whether they're 30, 40, 50, 60. I mean, I remember talking to my grandma who was 95 and she felt like her 20s were just last week. You know what I mean? I don't think our souls really feel aged the way our bodies do. I think our souls, we always just kind of feel like ourselves, just kind of an evolving version of ourselves. But, you know, we see changes in our body and society tells us certain things, and that can have an impact on our minds, our psyches, our emotions. So I feel it. I don't know if anybody else feels it. Turning 40 was difficult for me. The more, because it's been like a couple of weeks in, the more I've thought about it, the more I've talked about it, the more I've journaled about it, but the more I've said like 40 out loud, the better I've kind of gotten with this concept, the more comfortable I've gotten with it. So it's the severity of my emotions toward it is getting less, really. One thing that I did was I kind of like looked at other people who were my age, who were in the public eye, and I realized like they were still, you know, active, vibrant people who were, you know, making a difference in the world. They were, you know, doing charity work and, you know, starting companies, and, you know, actresses my age were still acting. I mean, Natalie Portman is a year older than me, and she grew up on Long Island just like I did, not too far from us. And she's like girl Thor right now, so like a superhero. And just the more I kind of started like looking at other people who were 40 or 41, realizing just how relevant they still were, how much they were still doing, it just kind of made me be like, all right, like, you can handle this, Kim. Take a deep breath and you'll be just fine. And I'm sure that viewers who are older than 40 are laughing at me, because I know my parents were like, I was in my prime at 40, like, what are you worried about? But I think that as we, like, each of us reach different milestones, it just hits us in different ways. I've always been someone that has felt very affected by these big kind of milestone numbers. So one thing that I did was I did turn to journaling, and like I said, I had this idea, this very specific idea that was just really cathartic to me, of writing these letters to kind of myself at each stage in my life. And one thing I've been noticing about my journaling is that normally I just use like vintage ephemera and washi and papers and stationery. But this year, like this 39th year leading up to this change, like I started including photos of myself a little bit more. And I'm actually really grateful that I've done that. It's a change for me. It's a little bit more scrapbooky, but I just feel like it's added something very, very personal to this journal. So I feel like when I look back on this journal, I'm gonna be grateful that I included some personal photos in this one. That's not something that, like I said, I normally do. And I just feel like this journal is really going to represent that transition from 30s to 40s, and I'm gonna be glad for the photos. Looking back, that's just kind of how I feel. I'm a sentimental person. But anyway, I had a very specific idea for this spread. So I'm more of like a loosey-goosey journaler. I just kind of like go with the flow. I just start creating. I don't plan. I just start like putting things down. And if I don't like the spread, I just add to it. But this one, like, I had a very specific plan with it. So I actually started it. This side is finished and this side I left open so I could craft with you guys. But it was actually a bit more difficult, even though it was a simple spread, because it was a little bit more technical than I normally do and more planned than I normally do. It was a little bit more difficult for me, so it took me a while. I am a talker as I craft, as you guys know to begin with, so I didn't want this video to be too long. So I did do the first page, and I'm just going to try to copy the layout of the first page to the second page. And my original thought was I wanted kind of all of these envelopes with these letters to fit within a 2-page spread. But the smallest envelope I had actually was this size, and only 2 could fit on a page at once. So I just decided to kind of roll with that. And I wound up making it into a 2-page spread instead. And there was this extra spot, and what I did was I used just kind of symbolism. I used a map, kind of like a road map to life. You guys are gonna see this video is really deep. This is gonna get emotional. And then I used symbolism of like a moth or butterfly, where the caterpillar kind of goes into the chrysalis and then they come out a butterfly or a moth. And that was just kind of representing like baby through now, of just kind of how I feel like I've evolved as a person, evolved as a woman, evolved as a human being, evolved mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Like I wrote about just physical changes that, you know, people experience as they age. It's not like a pleasant, fun thing, but it just is something that happens. So yeah, I had like an extra spot. I actually picked just my favorite photo of myself, which was from our wedding reception, and I just stuck that there, and then I just did the symbolism of the butterflies and I'm going to be using the butterfly symbolism kind of throughout the spreads. So I just fussy cut a bunch of these just black and white images of butterflies. I got this book for my birthday. It is Flowers, Butterflies, and Insects. The pages are really large. The illustrations are really big. And at first I was a little intimidated by them. I was like, I probably can only use these in a junk journal if I kind of like cut out the full page and fold it and it's just part of a junk journal. But then I started fussy cutting just like individual elements and like even kind of cutting the florals in different pieces. And I realized that, this actually could work well with both fussy cutting and full journal pages. So I got this book from Betsy. She is Wandering Slug on Instagram, and I will leave her information below. She hasn't been active on Instagram in a while. She decided to take a social break, which is completely understandable and respectable. But I would actually suggest following her account, even just to look at her older work, even though she doesn't really post anymore. Because she's actually like one of my all-time favorite artists. I think she is so beyond talented that even following her just to look through and like scroll through her feed is worth it. I think she's just like on another level. I just feel like I really connect with her artwork. But she had sent this to me for my birthday. I knew definitely that this was going to be a crafting used book. I definitely have books that I'll save and books that I'll craft with. I knew this one was going to be like used for crafting. There was just too much goodies inside. All right, all that to say, my supplies today are butterflies that I fussy cut from that book. And I can leave the info for that book below. I am using just plain craft envelopes. These are smaller. I'm not sure exactly the size, maybe around a 4x6, but maybe just like a 4.5 by 6.5. They might be a little bit bigger, or maybe like a 4x5. I did print photos, and I feel kind of awkward sharing photos of myself in a YouTube video, but here they are. I printed photos, and like I've mentioned in previous videos, I print archivally. So the printer that I use is a Canon Pro 100 Chromalife printer. The inks that I use are Chromalife 100 inks, which means that unlike most digital images that will fade after 15 years, these are guaranteed to not fade for 100. They are archival quality ink, which means your photos will stay intact. These in particular, I printed on sticker paper that was vinyl. So it is waterproof, it's smudge proof, and I just, I was a scrapbooker for a long time when I was younger. I just kind of got into the mindset of keeping things as archival as possible, just so you'll be able to enjoy them in years to come and family members can enjoy them. So yeah, I also was a photographer for a big chunk of my life, so I'm very into like archival printing. I did use these kind of like, it's called, I don't know what it's called, if I can see how it was labeled. It's like a numerical chart. This is a vintage paper. I used it as the background in the 3 places that will have the envelopes. I thought it kind of looked like a calendar, so that's why I chose that. Even though most of it you can't see, I just liked the symbolism of it in the background. I'm using just this kind of old like ledger paper. I got gifted very kindly a bunch of really beautiful ledger paper. I've been just kind of tearing it up into pieces and using it a lot in my crafting. I personally think it's so beautiful, like vintage ledger paper or graph paper. Anything like this, it's like a specialty paper to me. I really, really enjoy working with it. From Album Love Handmade. I've been using her stickers. As you can see, whenever I get anything from Kinga, I use it up pretty quickly. But these are the stickers I'm sticking with, so there's a uniformity to things. I'm just using 2 washi tape. I believe both of these are Paperminty Studio. Because it was a birthday thing and daisies are my favorite flowers, I definitely had to do the daisy washi. And then this just kind of matched to me like the industrial look of like the graph and ledger paper, so I used that. I find these just checkered washis to be really versatile and easy to use. I will definitely link Album Love Handmade and Paperminty Studio in the description. They're 2 of my favorite shops. They're 2 shops I come back to again and again, kind of whenever I need to replenish my newer stationery, like my more modern stationery. Those are the 2 shops I kind of always go to. And I've been using my Nico Neko Zakaya letterpress labels. These I've talked about a few times too, but I'll leave her information. She's a shop in New York City, but they do ship. She specializes in like Japanese stationery that's hard to find, but she's based in the US. So if you like letterpress items or Japanese stationery, you have trouble finding it, maybe for like an easy shipping price, Nico Neko Zakaya is the best store. I mean, absolutely the best. So I've been cutting these labels in 2 and just labeling kind of the letter. So this says, to the girl who just arrived. This says, to the girl in her childhood. I have to the girl in her teens, to the girl in her 20s. This one will be to me today. And this one says to the girl in her 30s. And yeah, I'm gonna get started with crafting. I do want to share some other things with you guys, but I think it's more fun if I craft and talk at the same time instead of just kind of talk your ear off. So I am trying to make each one of these identical. They're not going to be exactly identical, but it was really important to me to kind of have like a uniform look to this spread, where all of the envelopes have kind of the same look to them, and most of you guys know me, I enjoy just really simple layouts. So things that kind of look a lot more complicated than they are. This layering was really easy to do. I started just with this like graph ledger paper as the background. I really like craft envelopes a lot, so I tend to not fully cover them, but just kind of use the brown as like a piece of the collage. So as you can see with these 2, that kind of triangular piece or half piece was the graph paper. I also found it was a lot easier to design the envelopes first and then stick them on. This one I had designed first, but this one I had stuck on first, and trying to craft that way was a little bit more difficult. Then what I did for each was I just did the daisy washi, and I just kind of eyeball it. I tend to not like things too measured or too precise. I just kind of look and see kind of what feels right and what looks right. Sometimes that means things are a little off center. That does bother me, I won't lie, but it doesn't bother me enough to be more precise for some reason. So yeah, this is, and these peel right off. So I feel like stickers are pretty great to use if you're using photos. Printing photos on sticker paper if you're someone that uses glue a lot, you don't have to worry about like the glue messing up the photo because the adhesive is already on the backs of these. And yeah. So this is a photo from when I was a teenager. This is a photo from when I was in my 20s. And then what I did was I just took the little labels and I put those labels on. So these will be this way and the labels are over here. So I'm going to try to keep them over here. And again, nothing that's too uniform. I mean, these all kind of have the same exact layout, but nothing like too rigid. They're gonna look alike, but they don't have to look exactly alike. I also forgot to mention that I am using stamps. I'm using a brown stamp on the front of these envelopes. Let me move this up just a little bit. Brown stamp on the front of these envelopes, but each envelope is the space for the journaling. So I actually wrote my letters already. I have to say, I'll talk about that a little bit. It was one of the most cathartic journaling experiences I've ever had. I'm normally very open and honest with my journaling, especially if it's going to go in a tuck spot that I know is just like a personal place. I've never had journaling as cathartic as this spread. And I don't know if it's just because I've been kind of in touch with a lot of my emotions and processing a lot of my emotions because of my birthday, but I've never journaled so deeply and personally in my life. And it almost took me by surprise because I was kind of able to face off with like different really hard things and traumatic things that happened to me at each stage of my life and just kind of like speak into that girl, speak into that person. Like, this is going to happen to you, but you're gonna get through it. And you know, you believe this, but that's actually not true. Like, you are strong, you are capable, like this will get better. And I'm telling you guys, like it was the most cathartic journaling experience I've ever had. I would highly recommend it to anybody who is going through a milestone birthday or maybe like a life change, like a marriage or a move, this kind of journaling. Or even if you're somebody that, you know, maybe has kind of unresolved trauma with loss or a bad experience, like it was really, really healing to me. Probably the most healing I've ever felt journaling, to the point where it really, like I said, it took me by surprise just how much it helped to kind of pour into this like younger version of myself in these things. So like I said, the journaling was already written. So the letter to my little baby self is in there. The letter to my childhood self is in there. And I used blue stamps and that ledger paper, the daisy washi, the sticker, and then I just used like a light blue, because light blue is my favorite color, paper clip, just not only to hold the papers together, but also to hold them into this envelope, because this journal will be, you know, flipping back and forth, and I'm not taping this down or gluing this down because I want to be able to get to the journaling if I want to read it. So I definitely use the paper clip to kind of secure that in there. And then I'm going to be using the butterfly and some black stamps, like as well as reinforcing it with washi in the opening just so when you open them, they're not too plain. You know, there's still kind of designs going on. The first one though, this flower said yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That was the name of the flower. I just thought that was really representative of what I was doing. So as a vintage floral lover, as a symbolism and journaling lover, I thought, let's start off with that and let's carry the butterflies after that. But I just thought that was kind of cool. So yeah, each of the insides it's very simple. It's not going to be complicated, but it still looks pretty and pleasing to the eye when they open. So it's not just the front covers that are going to look pretty. All right, so in my little stamp egg, I just took out vintage stamps in the colors that I was going to be using. So we have the brown stamps for the front of the envelopes, the black stamps, and the blue stamps for inside. And I have, I wouldn't say like as many vintage stamps as some people do, but I do have, you know, a fairly big collection of them. And so if I know I'm using like a certain color palette with a spread, I personally find it easy to just kind of separate into like a smaller container the colors I know I'm going to be using, and that just kind of helps not put too much on my desk or overwhelm me with too many things. I can kind of just find what I'm looking for a little bit more easily. Now these are both on this side, so I'll try to kind of keep that going. And even though the journaling isn't in here yet, I do have the journaling completed for my teenage years and the years in my 20s, but I'll add that. I'll pause it and add that afterwards. So now we just have that last little daisy washi that will stick on. And again, I'm just not necessarily placing it in the exact same spot. I'm just kind of eyeballing it to where it feels like right to me, where it feels like it fits kind of in the layout. So next, I am going to be gluing these down. So I am just gluing the tops of the envelopes, being pretty generous with the glue because they are going to be holding writing. So I'm just trying to line these up the best I can with the other ones and giving space enough for both to kind of fit on here. All right, so this is a little tight, but that's the way the other page was too. And now we have both of these. Now what I did first with these was I reinforced them just with that larger tape of, that larger washi tape. So I'm going to do that again. And like I said, if I know something is going to be like heavier, like carrying writing or carrying ephemera, or, you know, if I'm doing travel journaling, sometimes I'll stick like pamphlets or whatever, road maps, receipts, stickers in these little pockets. A lot of times they do reinforce them. So this is glued and then reinforced with the washi. It'll also be reinforced with a butterfly or a moth. So it just personally makes me feel like a little bit more secure if I know something heavier is going to be in there. I kind of like this larger moth over here. I think he's kind of fun. And that just kind of makes me feel like there's a couple of layers that are just kind of reinforcing that that's not going to fall out. So the next thing, these are all set from the outside. The next thing I want to do is just, like I said, there's nothing too complicated about the way I decorated the inside of this. I just didn't want it to be too plain for when you opened it up. So I took just scraps of that ledger paper, and just to kind of continue the theme on the outside, on the inside, I'll just put that there. And then I just did a piece of the daisy washi. Again, just kind of continuing the look of the outside and the theme of the outside on the inside of these, just to kind of give it a bit of like continuity when you open these up. So this spread did take a bit longer. I know I'm like a really big proponent of making things kind of look complicated but being simple. There really is nothing complicated about these spreads. They are simple spreads. I'm a really big fan of when something looks a lot more complicated than it is. I really love simplicity in crafting, just because I think at my core I'm very perfectionistic, so it helps me if I can be a little bit more forgiving with myself and just free with my crafting. But this, like I said, this one in particular did take a little bit more time, just because it was a bit more planned out, and you know, like there was more kind of thought that went into it. We have the black stamps that'll go along with the butterflies. So now this one is all set inside, just ready for the journaling, and it's all set on the outside too. We will add some more black stamps over here. And now we are all set with this side too. So as we can see now, this looks like a very complete and comprehensive spread. We have photos from each of like the eras in my life. They're all done with the same layout and the same materials. They're all labeled. This one looks upside down, doesn't bother me, honestly. I kind of like I said, just a bit more of like a free junk journal-y feel. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then each one is going to open, and again, there will be that continuity where they're all kind of using the same supplies. They all have the butterflies and black stamps for each of those. And then this is just kind of the beginning of the story, the yesterday, today, and tomorrow flower. So I'm going to add the journaling that I did for the teenage years and the 20 years. Okay guys, sorry that I had to break up the video. I just realized that when I got up, I actually forgot to put my microphone back on. And I was talking for a really long time with no mic, but that's okay, because there was actually some things I was talking about that I wasn't sure I wanted to include publicly, so that's not a big deal at all. I will not include that now that I'm thinking about it, and I'm kind of happy that that happened. So I don't really know when it cut off, but I did finish both of these. I did add journaling into both of these. Like I said, I don't know when my mic cut out or not, but I won't be reading the journaling publicly. It's very personal, very private journaling, but this first spread is done. Each one of these has the photo from that time in my life. Each one of these has the journaling, the letter to myself from that time in my life. I had mentioned before, like I said, I'm not sure what recorded or not, that it was just a really, really healing experience for me. Really healing experience, because there were certain things that I went through at certain times in my life. Like when I was a child, I lost somebody that was very, very close to me. When I was a teenager, I lost somebody that was very important to me. This transitional time from teenager to early 20s was when 9/11 happened. That was very personal to me. My dad was a fireman in Manhattan who was a first responder. He got sick afterwards from the debris of 9/11. I wasn't at the site, but I did see the smoke and smell the smoke, and developed really, really bad PTSD after that experience of almost losing my dad and, everything that went along with that. So, there were different hardships from each of these periods of life. And I'm somebody that I feel like is normally very in tune with my emotions, but it even surprised me just how healing it was to kind of look back as a person who had more experience in life and more understanding with, anxiety and emotions, and knew how certain things were going to turn out, and kind of pour into that version of myself from each time period, and say things to like my childhood self, like, you will get through this. You are strong, you are capable, like you will heal, you will be okay. And kind of just did that for each specific thing that happened during each specific time period. I really think that if anybody is facing a milestone birthday, you're thinking about a lot of these things already. This kind of journaling was just really healing. You do kind of have to be willing to face kind of traumatic things that happen to you. So if you're not there emotionally, don't do it. I wouldn't suggest doing it. Only do it if you feel strong enough emotionally to kind of think about certain things or face certain things. But if you do feel like you're at that place in life where you're capable of looking back on things and kind of processing those memories and those emotions with journaling, I found this highly healing. I mean, I have to say, the most healing spread I've ever journaled. And it really helped me wrap my head around this new decade of life, and also be thankful for this new decade of life, that I felt like I had the wisdom and experience in life that I didn't have, because I feel like you might mourn your youth kind of when you're like leaving that youth stage to more like a middle-aged stage. But it made me more comfortable with it. It made me more thankful that like I had wisdom and I had life experience, and I was able to look at things in a different way than I looked at them at these time periods. And it was just healing. I think if anyone, like I said, is at a place where you're able to look back at certain things, I know that, certain times in life we're not able to do that, but if you are able to do that, I personally found this a very cathartic and healing exercise. And it helped me cope with a life change. So what you guys didn't see that I thought you were seeing was that I started the 40 page and the 30s page I had made already. I didn't add the journaling just yet, but I did do that last night. That took up quite a lot of time because there was quite a lot of changes in my life in my 30s. And then I started decorating the insides of the envelopes. So I really do apologize that none of that was on camera. I thought that my mic was on and it wasn't. So the only part of this journaling that I haven't done yet is the journaling to myself at 40. And I've only been 40 for a couple of weeks, so I'm not really sure what to say to myself just yet. But I think I'm going to tell myself to focus on the good things about it. Because like I said before, I think I've been so caught up with like mourning youth and mourning like my younger self that it wasn't until kind of doing this exercise that I kind of realized like just how cool 40 is. Just how cool it is to not have like the same insecurities that you once had, and how cool it is to kind of have life experience, to look at things in a way that has a little bit more wisdom and experience under your belt, and maybe see things differently than you used to or would have. So every stage of life I think is good, right? Every stage of life we grow, we get better. We get to be better versions of ourselves. Kind of grow in wisdom and understanding, and a lot of times patience, because we see things that we didn't think would work out, did work out, even if they took a little bit longer than we thought they would. So that's probably what I will say to present day Kim, is try not to focus so much on feeling older as a bad thing, but look at all of the like life experience that you've gained and the wisdom that you've gained, and look at that as a good thing. I would love to know anybody else's experiences. Are you like me in that you struggle with changes in life and you struggle with milestone birthdays? Or are you somebody that just kind of is very grateful and thankful for each stage of life and each moment that you have? I would actually really love to know, because I feel like I grow as a person when I hear people, positivity from other people. And sometimes, when somebody has a great outlook on something, it really does help to hear it. It can help ground us and get us out of our heads a little bit. Okay guys, so now this is finished. Both of these outer envelopes are finished. Both of the inner envelopes are finished. I kept with the blue stamps, the stickers, the ledger paper, and the washi on this side, and then the butterflies and the black stamps on this side. I kept with that kind of like numerical calendar page like I did over there. And like I said, this last page is just kind of like the caterpillar to butterfly, transformation page, which I thought kind of mirrored everything that I was doing. I will add the journaling off camera, but it will look just like the journaling here. So just little pages that I've written out that I will, attach with a little clip. But we're now fully done with this spread. Like I said, I did write out the 30s journaling already. The 40s journaling will be pretty quick because, like I said, I've had 2 weeks experience as 40. I'm not, it'll be more just encouragement that this life change is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And just to remind myself to look at the positives of everything. So I hope you enjoyed this spread. This was definitely a more personal spread than I normally do. You're seeing a lot of my face, and I don't tend to do that. But yeah, and this is the finished product. I was super happy that I had a plan and an idea with what to do for the spread. it was really important to me to process the emotions and feelings that I was feeling at 40. As a lot of you guys know, not only was I changing decades, but the last couple of years, I also underwent 3 different surgeries that really drastically changed my life a lot. It changed, my appearance. It changed my energy levels. It just changed my health very, very drastically. And so there was a lot of transition kind of leading up to 40, where the last few years of my 30s looked nothing like the first few years of my 30s. The first few years of my 30s, I was very active, social. I had energy. I had a ton of friends. I was always doing things. I was always, experiencing things. The last few years have been years that have been very filled with sickness, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, multiple surgeries, extreme weight gain that happened very fast for medical reasons, not because of anything that I personally did to change that, but which is okay. It's absolutely okay. I think that our bodies are just vessels to our souls, and that we need to view ourselves as beautiful any change that we go through. And I believe that we are beautiful through any change that we go through, but there's still, adjustment periods where things happen very suddenly or very quickly, where it can be difficult, where an adjustment or a change is a very sudden thing. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack, there's a lot to process, and each one of you has a lot to unpack and a lot to process. I'm just personally being open about a lot of my own crap in hopes that it'll help you guys in your own journaling just be more open with yourselves. You don't have to be open on YouTube if you don't want to. But if you want to do this personally, take this journey personally in your own journal, it was a really helpful, healing way to kind of close the chapter on some hurts that I had, close the chapter on some insecurities that I had, and kind of just let them go. It was like once they were out on the page, they kind of weren't taking up space in my head anymore. And I was able to just kind of release things. And it made that transition into this new decade easier for me. And I was able to kind of accept myself at this age a little bit easier. And the more I wrote about it and talked about it and said 40 out loud, the easier it got. And I feel a lot more okay than I did before. I was calling this age the age that could not be named. But I hope that you guys got inspiration from this. You do not have to, do this on a birthday. Like I said, you could do it during any kind of milestone or transition. It was just a fun, cathartic, healing, helpful thing. And also something that I know that I will look back on, say 10 years from now, and be thankful that I had the memories and the photos and the emotions kind of saved and chronicled, and I know that's something that I will appreciate because I'm a sentimental sap. All right, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope something about it inspired you or helped you, and I will talk to you guys real soon. Sending my love.